Hello everyone, welcome to the second video in restoring this Seiko 5, and let's take a look where we're at. So we've got our new main plate and in the movement holder already, and it has the jewel we needed, we were missing last time, and the rest of the parts we have. So we're going to start off finishing up the barrel. So last time we serviced the barrel, we wound up the spring and installed it and got a little bit stuck with the arbor, and today we're going to install the arbor and close up the barrel and then get going on the assembly. We'll also have to do some assembly on the train bridge, which is this guy here, before we can install it. But the goal today is to get the movement fully assembled and running correctly. Let's see if we can do that. And so starting off with the barrel, partially assembled here, and we just need to get that arbor in. The arbor is that small piece on the left there, and that sits in the middle of the spring, and it grips the spring, and it's what allows the spring to tighten. And you can see here under the microscope this small square hole at the very end of the spring. See right there in the center? And that's what the arbor will grip onto. And as we install the arbor, we have to make sure that the tab on the arbor is lined up with that hole in the spring. So you can see me here rotating to get those two lined up and at the right angle, those two, that one there. And go ahead and put it in. It goes in fairly easily, usually. Sometimes it takes a few tries, sometimes it goes easily. Sometimes it's the magic of video editing. And push one more time. There we go. Should be in now. Okay, and I found that the tab was at the wrong place on that go, so I decided to redo it under the microscope here. So now you can see the tab really nicely and the hole we're trying to get it into. And once it's in, we can check that it's lined up correctly and through the hole. Okay, let's go ahead and press it in. There it goes. Looks like we got it in the right spot. But first, let's check that it's actually gripping the spring and it can wind up the spring. So we just give it some wind and make sure it's bending. And you can see it's bending there. And one more check. See here, see the spring is bending and unbending. That's exactly what we want. It pays to be paranoid and make sure you get this stuff absolutely correct. And yep, you can just make it out there on the right, kind of at about 2 o'clock. And see if we can, yep, see there, right at 2 o'clock, right about there, and try to make some space to that next coil. So yeah, we have it in the right spot. It's very encouraging. Now we can go ahead and close up the barrel. Let's go ahead and do that. So for that, we have this tool here. This is a standard tool that everyone uses for this kind of thing. And this allows us to close the lid in a even manner. So it's flat all the way across. And that's what we like. Okay, and we can go ahead and close it. I find this tool works really well, but I always give it extra pushes and everything. That seam needs to be perfectly aligned all the way around, so that's what we're checking for here at this moment, and it looks good. Okay, and watching the video back, I noticed that some of the teeth are missing on this barrel. I got quite paranoid. I was worried that it was my process doing that, but I checked some other barrels I've serviced before and they didn't have any issues. So I think they were like this before, but regardless, we're gonna have to get a new barrel because this one's missing teeth, and this is the new donor barrel. I serviced this one myself as well, and it's just in my stock. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that in there now. And before we get that on there, I'm going to test it on my test fixture. So this is a device I designed myself to test the torque of the barrels. And it basically uses a lever arm to allow the barrel to press on this scale. And this fixture part holds it in place to do that. And then that gives me the data to categorize the performance of the individual barrel. That's helpful because I service these and sell them, so it's nice to know what the performance is. And the first thing is to put it into this fixture, which is basically an old main plate, and the center wheel is glued in so that the barrel can't spin. It only can release through the lever arm, and the lever arm presses on the scale and gives us a reading in grams. Okay, and just finishing that up, there's the lever arm right there, and that's actually like soldered on there onto the screw. And here we go, getting it in there, and then on the scale, and yeah, you can kind of see how it works there. And I use this coin to spread out the force. And winding it up, you can just wind it up by hand, and it takes about 6 turns to full. And then we put it on the scale and we can get a reading. And then basically, yeah, so we wind it up fully. We get the reading. You can see it's about 75 grams here. And then unwind it 1 turn and take another reading, and unwind it another turn, and so on. And I see quite a bit of variance between the different barrels. So this is actually really good data. I'm not fully sure how to interpret it yet because I've never seen someone else test like this. But I've tested enough of them to know, like, yeah, what I'm looking at. It's also like I've tested the barrels before and after servicing to see the improvement. So yeah, and then what do we get? 68 grams. I think that's after 2 turns. So he's releasing 1 turn at a time. And 21 grams is probably the last one. Yep, 21 grams at the end. And actually there's a big variance in how many turns to empty each barrel has, and that's like your power reserve, so it's really good to know that. Okay, now we're ready to start with the assembly, but before that we're just gonna clean up the main plate as best we can. It's already been cleaned in the machine, but now doing it close up under the microscope, and also we'll look at the jewels as well. But sometimes you can get this extra corrosion off, like that piece there. But I think in this case, it's actually the plating is a little bit worn off on this main plate. It's a bit unusual, but nothing for concern, I think. Okay, and a close-up look at the jewels here. We want to make sure they're super clean. And we'll actually take the time to clean those with the pegwood as well, like this, by spinning. And usually I can stick the wood all the way through there, but because of the microscope, I have this weird angle. But yeah, just doing this to get any old oil that might have be dried up inside there that the machine didn't get. I'm really happy with the performance of the machine, and these are actually coming out very clean. I used to use ultrasonic, and yeah, the watch cleaning machine from part 1 works much, much better. So I'm really happy with that, but still you want to take a look. You never assume anything is perfect. You always want to verify, right? Okay, now we're ready for the assembly, so we'll get back into the movement holder and a bit of oil on the center wheel jewel. A little bit annoying oiling this one just because of that wide open hole. There's a joke in there somewhere. Okay, now just cleaning up any extra oil that's misplaced. And we want to take a look at the center wheel up close before we put it in to make sure there's no fibers or anything. It's really easy to have a very tiny fiber on there that you can't see with your naked eye. That can totally mess up the movement. So we look under the microscope, and now dropping it in. Really easy to install. And now oiling these jewels. So there's a bridge that goes over the center wheel, and with that bridge in place, we can't access these two jewels, so we're going to have to oil them now. And just grabbing a bit more oil on the right side there, you can see. And oil up that second jewel. And it's tough to get just the right amount of oil on the oiler, that little device. Okay, now getting that bridge on. And that bridge is pretty easy. It has two alignment studs, and the jewel's really easy to get into the center wheel, and then just has the one screw. So yeah, pretty easy to drop that on, but you want to make sure you get the oil underneath first. Okay, and time for the screw. We'll drop him on there and tighten him on there. Okay, and I did get a new screwdriver. Since part 1, I was complaining about my old screwdriver on part 1. Okay, and now oiling the top jewel for the center wheel. Very nice. And now oiling the hole for the barrel. It's a bit annoying trying to oil this thing. There should be a jewel here, and actually it's possible to press one in. I haven't done it yet though. I'd like to do that in the future. But probably the biggest issue with this movement is the lack of jewel on the barrel. That and the rotor susceptibility to corrosion. So those are two issues I have. And yeah, let's take a look at the third wheel before we drop him in, as well as the fourth wheel, which is this one. And I call that the seconds wheel because that's where the second hand mounts on that long pole, long shaft. Okay, they look good. No fibers, no teeth problems, nothing. They look fine. And we'll drop those in. Oh, we'll get the barrel in there first. And just make sure it rotates freely and it engages with the center wheel, which it does. No fibers, it's all good to go. And let's go ahead and drop in that third wheel. I always mix up the order of the third and fourth wheels. One goes in first and another goes second, and you can't reverse them, which is in there now. And get that fourth wheel in, or the seconds wheel, like I call it. Usually pretty easy to get in. You're supposed to oil it before you put it in, but I oil it after from the other side of the dial. I like that better. Get it in the right place. You're supposed to actually oil that long shaft and then slide it all the way through, but I just don't trust that the oil would stay in the right place. And just want to make sure they rotate. Whoops, it popped them out. That's annoying. Get back in there. Get back in your home. Okay, and checking that it rotates correctly, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's slightly annoying. These wheels don't line up correctly without the train bridge. Okay, and now that those are in, let's get some oil on these jewels before we get the train bridge on. And checking the escape wheel before we get him in. Whoops, dropped him. And let's get the click in. This interfaces with the ratchet wheel, allows it to turn one direction but not the other, and wind up and tighten. And okay, now time to build up the train bridge. So this is a train and barrel bridge combined. Usually those are two parts, but on this movement it's just one. And now the pawl lever, which is part of the automatic works, part of the automatic winding system. And onto that goes the first reduction wheel. And underneath is a C-clip. So this is, yeah, a bit annoying to install, honestly. Okay, and we want to check that that's rotating correctly. It has an eccentric cam on it, and that's what causes the pawl to wobble. So you want to make sure they're interfacing correctly. And now, yeah, you have to hold it in this weird way like this to get the depth just right, because the reduction wheel doesn't sit flush with the train bridge, so you can't just hold the whole thing down. You have to hold specifically the reduction wheel and not the train bridge, if that makes sense. And while you do that, install this absolutely microscopic C-clip that's so easy to bend and make it worthless, and it's so easy to make it fly and everything else. This is quite a precarious moment, but a lot of yelling and swearing at this moment before in the past. But now I've got the hang of it. And just getting him on there. There he goes. Nice. And have to make sure it's at the right vertical depth as well. Okay, now we can go ahead with the train bridge now that it's all built up. This is quite a critical moment. It's quite difficult. Yeah. It just takes a lot of practice. There's a lot of different things to line up, particularly the escape wheel. The escape wheel, so for the escape wheel, it can actually go too high into its top jewel. And if it does that, if it goes too deep or too high into that jewel, then it will never be low enough to go into the bottom jewel. And so you'll just never get the escape wheel in. Yeah, and that happens a lot, so you have to be really careful about that. I wish it had like a depth stop, but then you'd probably break stuff if you messed it up, right? So I see why it doesn't have one, but it's an annoying little like pitfall. Okay, and yeah, as you mess around with it, if it's been more than 30 seconds or a minute, you should just take it off and retry, because if it's not going, then you're unlikely to get it to drop into place at that moment. So go ahead and just pull it off, reset, make sure everything's okay, and then drop it back on there. It's quite fiddly, but you get the hang of it. This is quite a big bridge, so that's the problem. This was probably kind of on the longer side. Usually I can get it on the first try. And another kind of pitfall is this click can go underneath. Depending on the curvature of the click, it will go underneath the train bridge. So see here, I'm just pulling it back out. But you have to lift the train bridge up. So it's annoying if you had it seated correctly and then the click was wrong, you'd have to fix it, right? And looks like, yeah, now we have it. And just using the air blower to make sure that it rotates freely, which it should. So this is one of the first critical tests, is can you spin it freely with the air? And we can, so we go ahead and screw it down. And basically you screw the screw down and then you check if it's still rotating freely, and you do another screw and you check and you do another thing. You don't want to screw it down if something's not lined up, because you could break a pivot or mess up a jewel or something like that. So you have to be super careful at this moment. I'm not going to put all that on film because it's just fiddly and annoying, but something to be aware of. And let's go ahead and get this screw tightened down. And now for the ratchet wheel. And that only goes in one of two ways onto the arbor. So that's actually the arbor it's attaching to. And you just have to make sure it's lined up correctly. And then getting the screw, and kind of an ugly screw. I never noticed after I took it out of the cleaning machine. A little bit annoyed. Has some corrosion on there still. But at this moment I'm just going to install it and keep working on the movement, and we'll mess with that screw later. We got bigger problems. And you see the pawl, like it likes to go underneath this screw, so as you tighten it down you're going to have to actually move that pawl out of the way. And you'll see here with the red stick, there you go, just moving the pawl out of the way. Otherwise the screw will actually tighten onto the pawl. Okay, and now with all that in place, we can actually tighten that and watch the train move. And it's moving really good. And then what you want to do when when it comes to a stop, you want to see how much power is still in there. And see here, we go ahead and crank it a few clicks and see that it winds down really smoothly. But then you want to kind of hit it like this and see how much more power was left. So if there's a lot of power left in there, you might have a problem. So the next bit is the pallet fork and pallet fork bridge. So the pallet fork itself I don't put through the machine. Probably could, but I don't. And so this is how I clean it, just in my Petri dish with the lighter fluid and some air. The pallet fork actually doesn't get oiled, so I find it doesn't get that dirty actually anyway. And we also want to clean the jewel for the pallet fork the same way we clean the others. Some pegwood. And just making sure there's no fibers. Sometimes the pegwood releases some fibers, so take a look under a microscope, make sure there's no fibers, make sure everything's good. I did put oil on these jewels as well, but I hit the microscope was already recording, and then I hit record and it actually stopped, that kind of thing. And yeah, I was frustrated because it's actually really hard to oil them correctly. Okay, but there it is installed. At least installed in its lower jewel, and then we put the bridge on. This bridge is fairly easy to get on. It has big shoulders for those screw holes to sit on, but the pallet fork can come out of alignment really easily. It should move like it's not even attached to anything, and if there's any friction whatsoever, it's wrong. And getting that screw in, getting it lined up. This is not too difficult in the relative scheme of things. All this stuff is difficult, but in the absolute sense, but in the relative sense, this part is not that difficult. Okay, with the bridge installed, now we want to check that the pallet fork flips from side to side very easily, and I only have like one or two clicks on the ratchet for this. And see there, you see how it clicks away from the tool. So now we're ready for the balance. This is an exciting moment. Let's see how it goes. This is quite fiddly because you're trying to move the balance, but it's connected with a spring to its arm. But we're pretty close already. Let's see if we can get it. And just trying to line it up gently, drop it into place. And see there, it's not in the pallet fork. So it's like on the outside of it. Oh, perfect. There we go. It kicks right up. Perfect. Oh man, it's always a miracle when it starts running again, I swear. Even though you did everything right. This is so exciting because I only have like 5 clicks on the ratchet and it's running. So that means there's very little friction in the train gear. And the first thing we want to do is check how it's running, and we see it's quite fast and about 180 amplitude. I didn't think much of it at that moment, but we're going to see it turns out to become an issue. So you can actually see the lever is pointing at the slow side, but the movement was actually running very fast, and that's a major red flag. But I didn't pick up on it at the time. I was only really looking at amplitude. The amplitude, which was about 180, which is kind of normal for a new build. We want to go ahead and oil the Diashocks. So these are for the balance, top and bottom. And yeah, this is quite a complicated little process. So it has this, it's called like a Diashock system. And basically this allows like some movement if the watch is dropped. This allows the balance staff to move up and down. And in the past, before they had this device, the balance shaft would break oftenly when it was dropped. But this gold piece gives a little bit of spring to the protection. And okay, we can pull that off with some Rodico. Very good. And now there's 2 jewels inside there. There's basically a top jewel and a bottom jewel. We call those the cap and the hole jewel. So we got the cap off, and that one's the whole jewel with its little middle shoulder, and here they are close up. And I've cleaned those in the ultrasonic. And time for some oil. And just a little drop of oil there. And then we can drop the whole jewel on there. And the surface tension from the oil will hold these two together, so that's really convenient. And that's just watch paper in the back there. Cool. And just making sure it's together. Okay, and time to drop it into place. This is always a bit of a challenge. It's kind of fun, like a little competition, how well you can drop it. Let's see how I did. Oh, awful. Oh, that's as bad as it gets. That's the worst possible place to drop it. Okay, this is going to be a field day trying to get this back in, because it's hooked on the wrong side of the balance staff. Probably should just pick it back up and drop it again, but I'm being a bit stubborn trying to drop it into place. Nice view of the movement here. You can see the pallet fork underneath. Of course, that's the balance, the hairspring. We can see, what can you see? The pallet fork jewel. Okay, and now we're getting our Diashock jewel back in. Look how beautiful it looks with now that it's been cleaned and oiled. It always looks amazing. Sheesh, this one's really fighting me, isn't it? Okay, here we go. There it is. All right, you can't hold out that long. And now for the spring clip. What do you call this thing? I don't know what this is called. Let me check the manual. Let's see. But yeah, you have to be very careful getting it in, and I'll typically use 2 tweezers, or I'll use 1 tweezer in Rodico to make sure it doesn't fly. The manual just calls all 3 parts Diashock, like the whole jewel, the cap jewel, and this metal spring. It calls all 3 of them Diashock. So I don't know what people usually call this triple clip thing. And just working it in there in a circle. Have to get it centered. A little bit OCD here. Okay, and for the bottom one, see, I can drop it in correctly. And getting that clip in there on the bottom one as well. Thankfully, I didn't lose any parts this time. I used to. You lose a lot of parts, but nowadays I do fine. Okay, and checking the timing again. And 170 seconds fast, even though it's pointing at the slow side on the adjustment. And 170 days, and at this moment it's becoming obvious to me that we've got a problem, and probably a problem with the balance. What happens is, as you see, now we're getting beat error. So beat error and rate should be completely separate. They have 2 different adjustment arms, but when those arms get closer together, they become coupled in a way that they shouldn't be. And the problem with this balance is we have to adjust the rate so much that it starts coming into contact with the other arm, and then they become coupled. And just want to show how you do that adjustment. This is the error arm, and you just do a very tiny movement, and then you check again on the time grapher. With the balance, don't know exactly what, and I thought perhaps this bend near the screw at the end might have been the issue. So I spent a long time adjusting this and adjusting this. This is called the terminal bend here. So I spent a long time adjusting those 2. You can see, since I just adjusted the lower bend, now the spring is not centered, so we have to get it centered again and then adjust the bend again and the center and so on. And I spent a long time doing this, like obsessing over the shape, before realizing actually shape doesn't matter. Like, its performance is what matters. I mean, shape does matter, but as long as it's about correct, then that's going to be good enough. It's the performance you want to look at. And then I came to realize that you can see these two brass posts there. I found that the spring is just pivoting only around one of them. So the angle the spring comes into this adjusters, and this is actually the right arm, is a problem. And anyway, I ended up just swapping in another balance because I couldn't figure out that problem. I spent a long time messing with that original one, and okay, now we have this balance down to 0.2 beat error and less than 10 seconds per day, which is perfectly fine for now. We're going to let the movement run in more and just let all the oil work its way in and see how the performance is afterwards. But yeah, that was good enough for now. And you can see it only took 2 or 3 adjustments to get perfect, whereas previously I did like 10 adjustments and couldn't get anywhere close to right. Okay, so now assembly on the dial sides. This is exciting, flipping it over. So first off, we oil the seconds shaft. This is the long shaft I mentioned. You can oil it before or after, so I like to oil it right here. And then so now the cannon pinion is going to go over this. That's the center wheel shaft there, and so we need a bit of oil on the center wheel shaft before we put the cannon pinion on. And here's the cannon pinion. Getting that on. And a bit of oil before we get the next wheel on. Okay, and let's get down there. This is the minute wheel, actually. And this is what the clutch turns on when you're setting the time. And now for the day corrector spring. This is that big spring that had rusted off. And remember, the post was missing on the old main plate. This is that. And this huge spring only has one screw that actually holds it in. And just getting that in the right place. Pretty easy. There's an alignment pin and then just the one screw. And let's get that screw tightened in. Carefully, please. There we go. We can see that brand new screwdriver again. Getting that tightened in. Okay, and now the date finger. And just being careful to hold it in while we get it in place. It actually doesn't have any screw, it just, the spring tension holds it in. And then there's a cover that goes over this as well. And just checking that it's springing correctly. And the clutch wheel. This is for setting the time and, well, it would be winding, but this watch doesn't have hand winding. But it's a clutch because it engages to set the time and it disengages so that it's free, and also, yeah, for setting the day and date as well. And now the stem. That does need to be oiled in several places, but I usually just do that at the end because I have to take it in and out a few times, and I don't like to disrupt the oil. You know, I don't like to oil something and then take it back out, right? Then I clean it and oil it again. And now, okay, and now the clutch lever. Clutch spring, I guess. I guess it's kind of both a lever and a spring, isn't it? A lever on one end, a spring on the other. The dial side goes pretty fast. Like, the parts are a little bit fiddly and annoying, but yeah, they go on there. This is the setting lever to choose if we're setting the watch or setting day or date or whatever. Oh, okay, I had it in the wrong order, so we have to get the setting lever in there first. Get that setting lever in there. And then the day spring on top of that. Now this is the yoke, but the day spring would come last. And the setting lever again. Yeah, it always takes a bit of like, put it on, take it back off, make sure it's right, put it on, take it off, watch a video, look at a manual, that kind of thing. I don't know how much of that to include in the video, because it's not that interesting, but yeah, it's part of the process. So once I get it in the right place, now I can take apart and put oil in this places where I can't access later. I kind of like to oil as late as possible. I don't know, personal preference. But now we have to oil that junction underneath because the setting lever is going to cover it up. Okay, now the screw. I have this screwdriver too. It actually works quite well. I hate to admit it because it came from a cheap kit, but it actually works really well. Okay, now checking the clutch is working and the springs are in the right place and everything, which they seem to be, so that's good. Oh, now this little tiny spring underneath the day corrector. That spring's so annoying. It's not hard to install or anything, it's just very easy to lose. Not a big problem. Drop them in there and move on. And the day corrector. Okay, get that in place very carefully. I don't know why that doesn't get oil. I'm looking at the manual, it doesn't take any oil. It's interesting. Okay, and let's get the screw in there. I quite like these tweezers I got. Okay, and let's get the screw in there. And tighten that screw in. And the date driving wheel. And that one does take oil. And we'll get him in. The date finger. And we'll tighten them in. Yeah, at this moment I was having issue with my normal vessel screwdriver. I think perhaps I didn't put the screws through the cleaning machine. Probably should have, but I need to like design a basket that can hold them carefully. And just finishing up with my vessel. But I'm even having issue with brand new screwdriver and these screws. And I think maybe there's like some grime inside of them or something. It doesn't look like it visually, even under the microscope, but they don't work right with my screwdriver. And the hour wheel. So the next step would be getting the day and date on there. And I actually need to clean those, like do a little bit of restoring on them. I'm going to leave that for part 3. So part 3 will have restoring these, restoring the dial, the hands, the case, the bracelet, and that's all work I haven't really done before, so I'm quite excited to get into it. But so let's just take a look where we're at. So we have our movement reassembled completely and running really nicely, as you can see. We've got, quite some donor parts and quite some original parts as well. The screw here, we still need to, either refinish him or replace him because he's a little bit ugly. But that's pretty much it for the movement, and then we have a few more parts to put on once we get our day and date cleaned up. I've actually never cleaned those before, so I have to learn how to do that and be careful without ruining the ink or anything. And let's take a closer look at everything else. So this is the case, the bracelet, and I keep these in these bags because they're so nasty and dirty and everything. Also going to try to resurface the crystal. So I really like refinished crystals, like actually polished with sandpaper and diamond paste. So I'm going to try that, and also we'll do this bracelet as well. We still need, this is the case back, and we still need to get that super glued 3D printed part off of there, and the hands, you can see they're going to need to be gone through as well. I did order the new loom and everything to do that, so that'll be the first time I've done that. And of course our beautiful dial that started this whole fiasco. I don't know what the best case scenario is with the dial, but whatever it is, we're gonna get there. Okay, and a close-up on the dial here that started this whole fiasco. Really beautiful orange dial with gold inlay. Really love it. You can see the 5 is corroded as well. We're gonna have to do something about that. I've got a lot to learn about restoring a dial. But yeah, there you have it. Here's the whole package, everything to be put back together. It's going to be a lot of fun for part 3. I hope you subscribe and come back and check out part 3. I hope it goes well. We'll see. I don't know what to think yet at the moment. I'm still quite a beginner, so here goes nothing, right? And we might as well take a look at the old ruined parts. So there's our old main plate, our old rotor, and everything else. Quite a few parts we had to replace. The crown, ratchet wheel, everything. So quite a nasty mess in there. Anyway, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I'm going to be working hard on part 3 and to bring that to you as soon as I can. And until then, I hope you enjoyed the content, and I hope you'll stick with me in the future. So thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye. Have a good day, okay?